I saw this little tweet yesterday. I don't know how it came across my feed. It said, "Meet the Logic, an unashamedly wonkish Canadian news startup led by David Skok. Founded in 2018, its staff has grown from 3 to 23, including 18 journalists. The Logic publishes 1 or 2 impactful stories a day, giving reporters freedom to dig deep." You've got 18 journalists and you only do 1 story a day? That seems weird to me. I mean, I guess each of them works for a month on a story. I don't know. It seems a bit odd. But I have heard of this startup. It's been around for 4 years, so I'm not sure how long it gets to call itself a startup. I remember when it was born, I was actually a little bit excited for them because I know it's tough to start something new in journalism. And they were going with a very expensive paywall model right out of the gates, $300 a year. That seemed high to me, especially for something that hadn't really proven itself yet. I remember that for the first 6 months or so, this show, the Ezra Levant Show, we broadcast it for free to everyone. The hope was that we would prove ourselves and people would be willing to pay $80 a year for it after that. But even then, we put chunks of the show on YouTube every day still for free. So $300 a year paid in advance. They don't let you have monthly subscriptions, I don't think. It's a bit bold, but good for him for trying. And here's what David Skok, its founder, said back in 2018. He said in a letter from the editor, he said, 7 ways to bail out the government's journalism bailout. He was responding to Trudeau's $600 million journalism bailout announcement. And I'll just read a little bit. Necessity breeds innovation, and the government's intervention removes that necessity for Canadian journalism. I founded this publication on the belief that journalistic independence comes from financial independence. All right, good for him. He's right, of course, but even back then you could see there were some cracks in his confidence. He said, "But while I'd love to stand on principle, if I don't apply for these grants, I will be putting the Logic at a severe disadvantage in retaining talent and securing investment in a marketplace distorted by government intervention that rewards incumbent firms." But at least he admits it's wrong, it's bad, it's unfair. And at least for a while, he was willing to hold the line. And I like this part. He wasn't for official journalism or credentialism. Here's what he said. "Freedom of the press is a fundamental right of our charter that is as essential to our democracy as the court system and elected office. It's a craft that any citizen can do. It is not and never should be considered an industry. And so framing the analysis as the consequences of news media concentration and the erosion of local news reporting, as the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage did in its final report, leads to trying to solve the wrong problem." I think he's right. He had some suggestions, some were better than others, but at least for a while he was standing on principle. So this tweet yesterday about the great success of Skok and the Logic, well, that was good news, right? I mean, here's the story behind that tweet. It was published in the UK. CEO David Skok on the rise of his wonkish Canadian news startup, The Logic. Oh, that's good. It's rising. David Skok, a former newspaper and broadcast journalist, founded subscription news startup The Logic in 2018 with $300,000 Canadian of investment and 3 employees. 4 years on, The Logic will soon have a staff of 23 and it's growing fast. Okay, well, good for him. But I thought the tweet said they already had 23 staff. Minor point, I guess. I'll read some more. With a wonkish approach to journalism, The Logic has established itself as a widely respected tech and business news entity in Canada. Skok, The Logic's chief executive and editor-in-chief, says subscription numbers have approximately doubled each year since launch. Okay, be honest. Have you ever heard of them? Probably not, but it doesn't matter. If only 1 in 1,000 Canadians subscribe to them, they'd be a huge success, right? And it sounds like they are a huge success. Subscription numbers have doubled every year. That's incredible. Good for him. The thing I think that was a shock was I had grand ambitions of raising millions of dollars to get The Logic off the ground. I realized very quickly when I was fundraising that this was going to be a lot harder than I thought, and so all of my forecasting and operating models had to be revised dramatically downwards. We ended up raising $300,000. It wasn't a lot, and we had to stretch that. The Logic was able to raise a further $1.8 million in 2019 from newspaper publisher Postmedia, Relay Ventures, and angel investors. Okay, so he's raised a couple $1 million now from private investors. That's pretty good. And he boasted that his subscriptions have doubled every year. Now, theoretically, that could be 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, but I assume it's more than that. So good for him. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of the article, but it ends a bit vaguely. Skok would like to expand his website more, including with foreign reporters. Okay. Now, almost everything in this article was positive. The rise of the Logic, that sounds great. Except the article didn't mention something really, really, really important. At least I think it's important. David Skok caved. He abandoned his objection to taking Trudeau's bailout money, even though he said he didn't want to, that you just couldn't trust government media. Even though he's raised more than $2 million from the private sector, he still went to Trudeau for money. I wonder why that glowing biography of him didn't mention that. It's probably because he didn't mention it. He was boasting of his success. I wonder why he didn't mention the Trudeau money. Well, because the secret to the Logic's success, if indeed you could call it that, is that David Skok's best laid plans just didn't work. And then the investment from those corporate media giants just didn't work. And David decided to go for the cash, big time. That was an excerpt from my daily TV-style show called The Ezra Levant Show. Each weekday, I do a monologue on the news of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest. I read some fan mail or hate mail, depends on which I like more. And we end with a video of the day. You can get it all at rebelnewsplus.com.